So let's dig in. So let me just start with Brian since he's not pictured here. Charles Lee, the new coach of the Charlotte Hornets. And I know you do the Buzzbeat podcast. And I know both of you guys are big Hornets fans. So let's dig into that. Are you happy with Charles Lee?
Yeah, I think it was a good hire. And look, Lee had been the front runner for this job for several months now. So it was really only a matter of time before they sort of stamped it and made it official. But 39 years old, young. This is a team that just reset things in the front office, and with the ownership, the front office just got younger. You got a guy like Charles Lee that's been an assistant now for a decade in the NBA. So even though he's young, he's certainly has spent a lot of time around the game. Former player at Bucknell in college, but to be an assistant with Mike Budenholzer with the Hawks and the Bucks, two successful franchises, won a title. Then you go and be a part of the Boston Celtics. Brad Stevens sees something in you. That's usually a pretty good sign for one's coaching prospects. If you look around the league with Ime Udoka, Will Hardy, Joe Mazzulla, maybe now Charles Lee. So I think there's a lot of signs that point to this being a really, really good hire. And I like the fact that they went in the younger route, because my hope is they're taking more of a creative, out-of-the-box, impatient approach to team building around LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Mark Williams. And I should say this, I've mentioned this in a few other places, including online yesterday, but back in the day, Charles Lee was my coach and counselor at the Skip Prosser Wake Forest basketball camp when I was a kid.
Nice.
Oh, wow, what a pull. What a pull.
Yeah, so pretty cool. When he was playing at Bucknell, he was a counselor there one year and was actually, was my coach during one of the weeks. So very cool to see him tracked his career since then, and to see him get a head coaching job is cool, and for it to be the Hornets is very cool.
I'm going to follow up with Brenden here, but I am just curious. Do we know was Charles Lee part of the Bucknell team that beat Kansas in the first round of the NCAA tournament?
What year was that?
2006.
He may have actually. I think he was.
Okay,
so he would have been. If he wasn't on that team, he would have been like the year after he left, because this camp was in 2004. And I want to say it was between his, maybe sophomore and junior year, or freshman and junior year. I remember Lee having, nighttime shooting sessions with Justin Gray, who's now the head coach at Winthrop.
Yeah.
And one Chris Paul too. So pretty cool.
All right, really quick funny story. I'll eventually get to you, Brenden.
Not good.
Is that I was at a Final Four. I think it was that year in 2006, and I'm in the coach's hotel, walking around the lobby looking for people, and I kid you not, because Syracuse the same year was upset in the first round, and Bill Self, I swear to you this is true, Bill Self shouted across the lobby to Jim Boeheim, "Who's better, Bucknell or the team that beat Syracuse?" One of the funniest things I have ever heard a coach say to another coach. So they had a good sense of humor about it. It was just kind of funny. All right, Brenden, quick thoughts on Charles Lee, and also, is there anything more important to Charles Lee than the health of LaMelo Ball?
Not just LaMelo Ball. It's been the health, generally speaking, of that organization. Two of these guys are gone now. Rozier and Hayward are gone, but they had issues. Obviously, with LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges missed time, not for health reasons, but because of his own bad behavior. And then Mark Williams seems like now he's kind of picked up this bug. Look, it doesn't matter how good of a coach you are. If you don't have your starting five on a regular basis, You're putting an elevator in an outhouse, right? It just generally won't matter. And so I need for them to be better. And it's gotten to the point now with this health, and it's been so across the team and it's been across years. Now I'm like, all right, all this isn't luck. And at some point, is there something systemically wrong with the way you're either evaluating players before you draft them or taking care of them after they get in the building? But it can't be this every year. Every year, I can't be saying this, hey, if they're just healthy, they're a play-in team, or hey, if they're healthy, they can get to a 7 seed or whatever it is. It can't be that every year. And at some point, the consistency of the problem is not a bug in the feature, is a part of the program.
I'm just curious about lumping all the players together. I'm not saying you're wrong, by the way. I wonder if the Ball brothers, the Ball family, has a problem. Maybe they've just played so much basketball that, because, I mean, I can't remember the last time Lonzo played, and I'm not sure the prospects of him playing, at the start of next year. I don't even know what those are. Quick interjection, Charles Lee, 15 points, 8 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block in the win, 64-63 over Kansas, first round of the 2006.
That's a big game. That's a big game in a two-pointer. That's a big game.
Yeah, it was the second leading scorer.
Yeah.
They were led by somebody else. All right, my eyesight's not fantastic. All right, let's get to because Brenden, you alluded to if you don't have your starting 5. Well, I don't know how many of the starting 5 of the Knicks are going to show up in Indiana tonight. We know OG Anunoby's not playing. We think Jalen Brunson is a game-time decision. If I were the Knicks, I wouldn't play him either. I'd almost like who cares about Game 3? See if I can get Jalen Brunson ready for Game 4. Maybe I can get healthy. But what do you make of the Knicks and the Pacers in this series, especially with the Knicks injuries?
I think that being a bench player on a Tibbs coach team is the best job in sports because you're not finna go nowhere.
It's the backup quarterback.
You're the backup. They got a whole team full of backup quarterbacks over there. Why is the camaraderie so good? Because everybody's getting paid to have the best seat in the house. That's why the camaraderie is so good. Nah, I mean, look, I am of the opinion that you can't keep playing these guys. Like the Josh Hart stat of him averaging more than 48 minutes a game is insane, my guy. Like that's flat out nuts. And I know they're all in great shape. I'm not saying that they're not, but at some point you're in the second round now, and Indiana plays with a lot of pace. You haven't been to Indiana yet. I just can't believe that they can continue to. You're missing so many people that people forget that they're missing Julius Randle, right? Who at his best is an all-star caliber sort of a player, and OG Anunoby and what he's meant to that defense. Mitchell Robinson and what he has meant. There just seems to, and then as you mentioned, Jalen Brunson too. Like there's just so many nicks and bang ups on this lineup that I just have a hard time believing that you're going to be able to continue this. And if Indiana cranks up the pace some, I think that they could maybe just wear them out and just have players that are like we got an Alec Burks sighting last game to let you know exactly how pressed they are to get buckets off of that bench where they're just looking for guys. And he hasn't played like a month and change. Like he hasn't been part of that rotation in a minute. And so they're now getting desperate to just try to fill minutes. If I were putting money on this, even though they're down 2, I think you probably get some really good odds. I think I'd still go with Indiana just because I just don't think that humans can keep up this sort of activity for this deep into the season.
I agree. I actually picked the Pacers before the series, and I'm not discouraged by that choice, even after going down 0-2. I do think this Knicks team, though, is super fun and inspiring to watch. I don't know whether to call them, Brian, would you call them the Villanova Knicks or the New York Wildcats?
What about the Nova Knicks too?
Nova Knicks are good, very good. Nova's big. Nova's big in certain parts of Manhattan too. On a bagel. Oh yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. No, it does feel like this is at a critical mass, right? With as far as all the injuries go. You lose Randall's shot creation. You lose Mitchell Robinson, one of the best offensive rebounders and a very good rim protector. You lose Bogdanovich, who gives you shooting and floor spacing. And then Anunoby is just he is like the archetypal, hybrid 4-3-and-D player who can also crash the glass and attack closeouts and drive gaps. And that's a big part of New York's offense when teams trap Brunson. And I will be curious to see, if Brunson plays, I'll be curious to see who gets to be the primary defender on him because it looks like that ship has sailed for Andrew Nembhard. Maybe don't go back to that one. But Aaron Nesmith, TJ McConnell, and some traps against a team that's just somehow throwing it together with, glue and tape and use bubble gum.
Yep.
They're super inspiring team. Love watching New York play, but man, they're just down so many guys. I mean, you could build a good, playoff lineup out of the guys that are currently out for them. And so it's tough. It is very hard to sustain that in the postseason.
Maybe just jettison both games. Like, don't even try to win. I'm not even kidding. Like, because it's not about just winning this series if you're the Knicks. It's about, because I think that if the Knicks can get to the Celtics with enough healthy bodies, I think they are the exact team that can knock Boston out because of the way they work. And I think that's what will beat Boston. That's why the Heat beat Boston.
I think it's he beat Boston this year because they hit 23 threes in the game.
Yeah,
no, not the one game, but I'm talking about in Heat teams in the past just absolutely outwork the Celtics, and I think that's how you beat them.
Yeah, it's the no nonsense team against the team like Boston that has this beautifully, perfectly built team, but just has this tendency to play with its food too much, and really kind of fall apart not fall apart, but just get way too predictable in terms of end of game clutch offense. And a team like New York that has perfect identity, knows who it is, has a go-to guy in Brunson who's a no nonsense driver and post up guard. I just wish they were healthy. I think New York's already too injured. Even if Anunoby and Brunson were at full hum. I even think they're probably too injured for Boston, even at that point. I got to be honest with you.
That's fine.
I agree that
I think the Pacers are going to win this series. So, and I'd love to see Indiana give the Celtics a run. Let me go. Let's go west real quick. Real quick.
More Reggie Miller. I love it. Go ahead.
Oh man, I'm so glad he's on this series. It's just beautiful.
I don't know if you heard, he scored 8 points in 9 seconds. I'm not sure if that had been brought up before, but he had actually played in the Garden. Yeah. I don't know. This was a very lightly covered thing. I know it's crazy. It's insane. Apparently got into it with some guy named Spikle Lee. I don't know. I'm basing this completely off of the time.
So real quick, as I interject a funny story in time we don't have, so we have one of our producers here is a big Knicks fan. And I came in the other day and I'm like, well, Jalen Brunson had his Willis Reed moment, and he looked at me like I had 6 heads. What is that? Who's Willis Reed?
He actually had his Walt Frazier moment. I want all due respect to Willis Reed for coming out and hitting those 2 shots on his bum leg.
But
Walt
it was
went crazy in that game.
He did.
I would murder everyone that would ever say that to me if I was Frazier. Frazier went for 37 and 19.
I get it. But it was Willis Reed was the inspiring health. He's limping out, dragging his leg like he's he's a Frankenstein, and he's coming out on the court. He didn't really do anything in the game. He's just there. They just needed a body to stand and lean on.
I'm too petty for that. If I'm Frazier, y'all would never ever call that the Willis Reed game around me. Not within earshot.
I would never disparage Clyde, the all-time New York Knick guard. All right, so out west, we're staring. We could still have Denver and Dallas, but we're staring at the possibility of Minnesota and OKC. I kind of think Dallas is going to end up winning that series, but we'll see. How good, Brenden, is Minnesota?
I underestimated how good they were defensively. I thought that they were great during the regular season defensively. That's an obvious thing. I think they finished 1 or 2, whatever it was in the free season. Obvious. I wasn't sure against this sort of an offense that they could do it, and they just held them to 80. They've been really good on that. They have so many multiple point of attack, really solid defenders. Edwards, McDaniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker have all switched off and have given the guards and Murray sometimes some real fits. And they're just so much better on that end. And then you have these 2 scorers like Karl-Anthony Towns and Edwards who are just consistently going to be there. And Minnesota and OKC got lumped together in terms of 2 young teams. Minnesota is a team with which we are not, as a national coverage, familiar.
Yep.
Right? Not young. Karl-Anthony Towns is not young. Gobert is not young. Yes, their franchise is, but there are Conley. They got plenty of guys on that team. OKC is legitimately young. You mentioned Dallas. I'm favoring them. I have this entire time. I just really, really like the way that team is constructed. Shout out to PJ Washington, by the way.
Had a monster game yesterday.
Now, you get to have games that matter in May, my guy.
Yeah.
You made it. Like that's like you for real. You made it out the gutter, my guy. Like you really from nothing.
Wait a second. Are you comparing the freedom that now PJ Washington is experiencing to like Christian McCaffrey? Like it's a mercy trade.
Man, I was so glad that he got up out of there. I was like, good for you. You make it. Was it Ben Affleck at the end of Good Will Hunting when he goes to Matt Damon's crib and he's like, oh, he's gone. Thank God. He made it out. He ain't cracking rocks no more. Like, that's how I felt when PJ made it. Like, as soon as he got traded, I'm like, yo, he going to be a dog playing around side those two aces that they got down.
Well, I mean,
for that man.
There's a lot to be said for being, being able to play with those two guys in the court and all of the attention that they command. Brian, how do you look at the Mavericks and the Thunder in that series? I think Minnesota's going to win the series, but I think Denver will win tonight. I think Denver will buck up for one game, then Minnesota will win game 4, and maybe even close it out in Denver in game 5 because I just don't think the Nuggets are fully operational right now. But Brian, how do you see Dallas and OKC?
Fascinating series. I mean, the win Dallas got last night was huge. That's the biggest win they've had in a couple of years, probably, to get one on the road like that. Luka looked great at the start, looked not so great down the stretch. Kyrie Irving only has 9 points, but I thought played great. Man, it's crazy to see just like how he's just immediately flipped the switch back into being like an impactful postseason player. Been super fun to watch. And look, for those of us who held on to our PJ Washington stock, said this guy is a postseason player, absolutely can be on the floor because he can defend, he guards multiple positions, and he can shoot corner threes, and he can do some other stuff. Like they used him to post up SGA some, and that worked. Mm-hmm. He went back to Kentucky, PJ, to get those little post ups and duck-ins and stuff like that. It's awesome and very cool to see. Derek Lively getting minutes in the postseason as a rookie. I do think the Mavs could really use Maxi Kleber back, front court guy off the bench that gives them some stretch, which is something that Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively don't do at the 5 spot. And who knows, maybe they'll try more of PJ Washington at center to sort of try to match up with some of these, Chet Holmgren at 5 lineups for the Thunder. Mm-hmm. I'm worried about Luka's health.
Oh, yeah.
He just doesn't look, he's compromised. Jamal Murray's compromised for Denver, too. So I kind of think a team like Oklahoma City that's young, that's athletic, that's got an ace in Gilgeous Alexander, and can really do some tough matchup stuff in terms of like, when they take Josh Giddey off the court, they can put Wiggins in there, they can put Isaiah Joe or Casey Wallace, and then they can really play 5 out against you. So I don't know. I think I'm taking Oklahoma City in the youth and the speed, but it is tough to. And it'd be different, I think, if Luka was at full hum. Because if that were the case, I would just say like he's probably the best guy in the court, even if SGA is out there, and I'll just bet on to the playmaking with Kyrie. But I think I'm going to take Oklahoma City. I could see this series going. It's going to be a long series, obviously. Like it's already 1-1, and it feels like this thing could really go the distance, which could be to the benefit of Minnesota, if they make quick work of Denver.
We have to run. We're actually I'm about to hit the top of the hour, so I have to say goodbye to Brenden and Brian. At HU Cosell for Brenden Whitted and at bgeis_bird. I loved having both of you guys on together. It's been a while. We have to do it again. I appreciate both of you. This has taken me back to a simpler time and place when the Hurricanes weren't down 3-0 in the series to the New York Rangers, which is our biggest nightmare. That's Brenden Whitted. That's Brian Geisinger. They are together. The League Pass Lair back together again. It's been awesome. And this will be on YouTube very soon as well.